everyone! Quick disclaimer before we hop into the usual meat of the video. Yes, I'm aware my sound quality isn't great. My headset's microphone just kind of died on me last night, so I'm using the webcam mic while I wait for a replacement. If you hear any random shit going on outside, any cars or people that I live with, that's probably why. I'm so sorry for that. With that out of the way, happy Halloween! We're working on Discworld's best girl, Sto Helit, today, and I'm so excited to get into it. I tried a whole bunch of new techniques, so I really hope this one's as interesting to watch as it was for me to make her. I've already kind of explained Discworld as a series, and soul music in particular in my most recent video up there in the iCard, so I won't rehash these discussions here. Instead, I want to talk about Sto Helit, Death's unlikely granddaughter and most begrudgingly sensible woman on the disc. Her grandfather took an apprentice, and then that apprentice fell in instant hate with Death's adopted daughter Isabel, and then enemies to lovers shit happened, they had a falling out with Death, and then they had a kid. That's essentially the B-plot of the novel Mort, which takes place roughly 16 years prior to Soul Music, where we properly meet Susan. We learn from little vignettes from her childhood that she had limited access to her grandfather and his domain growing up, and then that access dwindled and dwindled and dwindled until eventually she had no access, and then she just kind of forgot that he was Death. When we meet her in Soul Music, she's completely forgotten all of this. She's described as a schoolgirl at a deeply lame school for girls. Her uniform is this long, boring gray sack dress, and her huge poof of white hair is in these, unruly braids. She's not friendless by any means, but she's also not having a great time. She just got wind of her own parents' death by carriage accident, and she's really not processing that grief very well at all. It's great timing, then, that her grandfather's about to have a bout of ennui and existential doubt as a result of his own feelings around the deaths of her parents. He goes and fucks off, and as a result of him going and fucking off to, figure out what life is about and stuff, she kind of gets drafted by the universe to take his position as Death and to reap souls. Because if nobody reaps souls, people don't die, essentially. She has this whole monologue, at one point in the book, where she's talking about how uncool she feels and how unfashionable and how lame, essentially. And she wants to kind of she gives herself this kind of henshin while she's at Death's house in his domain, using her powers that she doesn't really know she has until this moment. She's just kind of talking about the kind of outfit she would give herself, the kind of look she would wear, because she feels like she should be gothier and cooler as Death, and just kind of wills herself this sick, romantic, goth sort of a wardrobe that she thinks fits her station as Death, and I really love this moment in the book, so that's the outfit that I will be working with. I'll be taking inspiration for this glow-up form from Paul Kidby's illustrations of her that you can see here, with the notable exception that I've conceptualized her as black. An afro lends itself better to the hair she's conventionally illustrated with, and I think her themes of parentification, or grandparentification in this case, and being made to assume existential responsibility in these sorts of ways, kind of speaks to the issues faced by black youth today. I myself am not black, so obviously take what I say with a grain of salt, and I'm really sorry if I've been insensitive here. It just felt to me like there was a reading to be made there, an interpretation to be made there. Her race and appearance aren't really mentioned too much in the books anyway, so I felt like this was a liberty that was safe to take. I'm sorry, I guess, if I've fucked up in any way. Please don't come for me. Sorry. For her clothes, I've given her a little capelet with a skull fastening at the throat and a big hood, a purpley black corset with a front bust, a long plain skirt with a nice high side slit, and a big pair of stompy goth boots, which are the only exception to her fairly elegant attire. I figured they would remind anyone looking that she's still ultimately a girl who wants to look cool at heart. She also has these cute little fingerless gloves with skulls on them. Now that we've discussed her design and my choices here, let's get started modeling. Start with that subdivided mirror mod cube and move those birds and faces till it looks like the reference image. I wanted to pay particular attention to the eyes because she has this spooky ability called the look. And I wanted to communicate that with her eyes with this model. With the eyes made the right shape and size, I started adding geometry around them to create a fleshier eyelid for better deformation later on. Once I had finished modeling and working on these features, I cleaned up the topology around the forehead and philtrum areas of the face somewhat, and created the rounded shape at the base of the mesh to start extruding the neck outward from. I kept this hollow instead of having it filled with faces like last time, and it made the modeling go so much faster, so I'm for sure going to be keeping that way of doing things moving forward. Now I'm just kind of extruding it down to her crotch from her neck, making minor adjustments to keep it close to the reference image. Pausing here to shape her shoulders and extrude her arms. Remember to create more edges here and here for better deformation.
As the sun slipped down behind the shadow of the mountain, a giant wave of sound drew us towards the source of her power. The darkness was frightening, but something seemed to guide our steps through the blackness. By the time of the meridian, we had discovered the secret of her ascendance, and we knew we were in the presence of the touchstone.
I did a bit of extra work around the chest to make it look closer to the image and closer to how bodies look generally, with the swell of the breast coming out of the chest naturally instead of stapled onto it. It's kind of a hard shape to get right, and I wanted to make sure that it looked good. I hit Shift D to duplicate all the faces around the scalp now because I'm doing my least favorite blender operation, hair particles. Regular viewers of my channel know that this is not my preferred method of making hair for characters, but in cases like these where doing a billion tiny, tightly curled curve paths would be untenable and exhausting to add bones to, it was necessary to get the movement and the look right. But let's put that down for now and work on her clothes. I start off with the corset by duplicating her whole chest and just moving vertices around to mimic the look of the Sweetheart overbust corset. I also gave her a little puff sleeve that hits right below the shoulder because I love the look of that. And it'll look really elegant with the lace trim alpha detailing that I'm planning. To create her skirt, I duplicate a row of faces around her waist and extrude the bottom edge down to where her legs currently end, adding plenty of loop cuts to facilitate deformation and movement. The skirt will have its own bones, so it deforms convincingly. Once it looked right, I applied the mirror modifier and cut a thigh-high slit to match my concept art, making sure every new vertex was attached in some way to an existing one to keep the mesh clean before deleting the superfluous ones.
In your line of work.
Albert,
Chamomile tea, sir.
I thought that was a kind of soap.
You can put it in soap or tea, sir.
How very useful. Clean inside and out. Albert,
Yes, sir.
I've been wondering,
Sir?
what's it all about? Seriously, when you get down to it.
Oh, couldn't really say, sir.
No.
I started her shoes from the sole of her boots, working all the way up to the shins, just extruding and shaping the faces to get the look of the shoes right. I divided a bit of the shoe here, cut into the shape to create a tongue, applied a solidify modifier, and reattached it to the main shoe by merging vertices around the shoe and tweaking the final fit around the calves.
Albert. Daft old fool always took it with him. I can't imagine what he thought I'd do. 34 seconds.
Master,
Where is my granddaughter?
she's trying to save the boy. She doesn't know the meaning of the word duty.
But we do, don't we? You...
To make her gloves, I duplicated the wrist and cut into the shape with a knife tool, making sure there were no stray vertices. I made the skull accessories by creating a new mirrored plane and extruding upwards and outwards a few times to get the base shape of the skull, then correcting the shape so it looks a bit more like a mushroom, then cutting into it where the teeth go, again keeping those edges and faces clean. Then I inset the faces for the eyes and the nostrils, extruding outwards and closing the gaps on the inner side. Once the shape was finished, I applied the modifier and added a second mirror mod, placing them on top of the wrist gloves in edit mode. To create her capelet, I added a new mirrored plane, situated it near the bottom of her shoulder blades, and extruded its outer edge, rotating it along the x-axis and extruding it upwards till it reached around her arms, extruding it forwards until it reached around to her chest. I subdivided it here and extruded the lip around the shoulders upwards to create the hood. I duplicated the skull on her hand, removed the mirror modifier, and placed it in the middle of her chest. I also added a shape key here for a hood down pose. And that's the outfit done. Now let's get to the painful stuff. I started by creating a few curl shapes with curves, converting them into meshes, and decimating them as low as they could get before looking awful, and then I added them to the hair systems that I made. I cut out a lot of the more frustrating bits of the process where I was like losing my whole mind trying to get the length and the placement right, but like rest assured it took me several hours to get to the current iteration that I have in this model. I'm just going to skim over the rigging here because you've heard me explain it a bunch of times by now. Just situate the armature in the middle of your meshes, move the bones, and delete or add new ones. Nothing new or special is happening here.
I'm leaving.
I'm honestly thinking of making a few how-to videos sometime next year so I can direct any new viewers to them. Let me know if you'd be interested in those so I don't have to just like go really in-depth into stuff that I've already explained a bunch of times. And I can make these longer videos a little bit more fun and more conversational.
To the city. They really care about music there.
I've added bones to her skirt and capelet, as well as face bone systems for her eyes, eyebrows, and mouth. I go over how to do it here in this most recent video as well, so her movement is a little bit more naturalistic. I actually didn't add any physics to these bones, and just kind of animated their movements by hand for the final piece. I think it turned out really good, actually, so maybe I'll do it some more.
Pleased to meet you. Mr. Dibbler says you're the best thing since sliced bread.
Well, that's it.
Good. Just being sliced ain't a whole lot of fun, huh?
No, sir.
Once everything looks right, I started parenting everything with automatic weights. Because of all the extra attention we paid to the vertices and edges, I didn't have any trouble getting to a workable weight paint baseline, and I only had to do a little bit of tweaking around the corset and capelet for stuff to be usable. Now let's get started on painting her textures. I actually added seams to most of the meshes earlier, so when it came time to applying the mirror modifier and unwrapping, I just had to add a few extra materials so everything would have the same level of detail. I had to apply the mirror modifier on her because she has a birthmark on one side of her face, and I didn't want that to be mirrored to the other side of her face. Once everything was unwrapped and laid out nicely, I started laying down some highlights and lowlights around her face to emphasize the planes and angles. I gave her a defined lower lash line in lilac and a deep purpley red lip. I did all of her lashes, brows, and most of her hair in this lilac color, and gave her a soft periwinkle / true blue sort of eye color. I wanted her to have a raised, slightly scar-like birthmark, so I've added a bump map and a smoothness map to this texture setup. I've also added emissive masks to her eyes and face, because I want some of those to have glowing elements as well. Once all of the facial stuff has been painted and figured out, I start painting her body details. I was originally toying with giving her a deep plum nail polish situation, but then I realized that I was being a little bit too self-indulgent because that's the color I normally paint my nails.
When spring has returned and the trees are in bud, it's time for the gathering, so down to the wood. Gathering rhubarb from field and from hill, we'll be gathering rhubarb till we've had our fill. On dark lonely nights, when a cruel wind has blown, with a rhubarb companion you're never alone. Rhubarb in crumble, rhubarb in pie, or a strudel will do till you transmogrify. Gathering rhubarb from field and from hill, we'll be gathering rhubarb till we've had our fill. Gathering rhubarb, 'tis a harvest of bliss. Oh rhubarb, she's the best on the disc. Well-known appendage of a fresh juicy tart that'll rise with a chortle and leave with a fart. Gathering rhubarb from field and from hill, we'll be gathering rhubarb till we've had our fill. Gathering rhubarb, 'tis a harvest of bliss. Oh rhubarb, she's the best on the disc. Tender pink stems, so firm to the touch, can bring so much happiness when firm in your clutch. 'Tis a friend of young maidens, 'tis a friend of all crones. With a rhubarb companion, they're never alone. Gathering rhubarb from field and from hill, we'll be gathering rhubarb till we've had our fill. Gathering rhubarb, 'tis a harvest of bliss. Oh rhubarb, she's the best on the disc.
This is all the librarian's doing, isn't it? That noise he was playing on a blasted organ last night.
Search us.
And exactly where did he pick up all this music stuff?
Her skirt, gloves, and cape were all very simple, just a gentle royal blue to navy gradient that's brighter around the bottom. To create the texture on her corset, I added a bump map to a blurple / navy blue base, adding highlights in indigo. Then I added raised details to the bump map for her boning channels, front closure, back lacing, and a swirly pattern. I colored all the raised details black, but the front closure and the back lacing, and added detail around the raised swirls in a lighter violet to add visual interest. Her sleeves have a base solid indigo and deep aubergine striped pattern with similar raised detail and a black lace alpha trim around each opening.
It looks as though we can trap the music on a wire, and we can play it back anytime we want.
We don't want to trap it, Stibbons. We want to stop it.
But if you can trap the music in boxes, then you don't need musicians. No more troublesome, unhygienic musicians, Arch-Chancellor.
The skulls all had a pale yellow base and lots of very detailed shading around the eyes and nose holes, and a little bit around the teeth as well to give the appearance of a small stylized skull. Her boots have a dark brownish base material with raised skull and crossbone detailing on the sides, a raised steel toe box with screw detailing, and a skull patch on the back with stitched detailing, all hand painted onto a bump map by yours truly. Quick reminder that you can get all of these files over on my Patreon here at the same time as this release. I also won't be going into any more detail on how these textures were made, so check out Patreon as well for like whole posts on the explanations of the node maps and how they work, you know. To finish off, I textured my curls. The pale lilac ones are shaded with a less pale violet, and the black ones have blue, purple, and green highlights to hint at there being an otherworldly aspect to her. The color of magic in these books is a green, bluish, purple gradient, so I wanted to have that hinted at where her hair is. And here's the final result. I'm genuinely very pleased with how she came out. Hair system be damned. It might have taken literally days to render this animation out, but it was worth the extra time, I can tell you that much. Look at her. She looks great. Every model featured in this final render is available for patrons, rigged and textured. You can also grab the band with rocks in, as both sets released today, about an hour after this video goes live. After November, I'll be taking another little break, just for the holidays and stuff, and hopefully to finish a big project or two. I'll be back in January with a new theme, but until then, look out for a big old pile of wizardly shenanigans. Friends, I hope you've all enjoyed this video. I tried a whole bunch of new techniques for this model, and I had a lot of fun figuring out how stuff worked. I hope you all had a good time watching it, and have a good rest of your day. Stay toasty and warm, and I'll see you all soon. Bye! Have a good Halloween!